Hi everyone, it's Tawney. Today I thought I'd talk about something a little bit different. I mean, it's still makeup related, obviously, but I kind of want to talk about something that I feel like we've all been going through and feeling, and we've all come to the same conclusion with these brands that I'm going to be discussing. And it is, simply put, products and or lines that brands have come out with that have been used and talked about, and products have been made to death. And what I mean by that is we've seen various brands who keep relying on the same line to continue selling makeup and continue their sales. We've seen it with Benefit, Nars, Urban Decay with their Naked palettes. And I kind of wanted to get a little bit, into the nitty gritty and talk about that and kind of expose these brands for that and just kind of see what can be done. I don't know if I have the answers, but do they have other ideas? Do we have other ideas? Can we collectively come up with answers to give these brands as consumers and purchase people who purchase the makeup? So I wanted to talk about that. So we're going to jump right into it with the first one, which is Benefit. Now, I'm sure you guys have noticed lately, they've been pounding out products, but they're all the same product, basically. They all have the same, intention. They're all the same thing repeated. And it is with their Hoola bronzer line. Now, Hoola bronzer initially came out as the original, which is not the Hoola Light that we, were introduced to several years after, or however long after. We were introduced to just Hoola, which is the same as the Physicians Formula Butter Bronzer. It was just the shade that they came out with, and they've slowly expanded. And we saw them come out with the Foroscope palette, which only was 3 palettes, which was a little confusing, but it had a highlighter, some blushes, and the Hoola bronzers in them, and it tried to cater to various skin colors and skin types, and tried to use the different Hoola bronzers to kind of okay, this is the light palette and you get the Hoola Light, whereas with the deep you get the Hoola Dark or Deep or whatever it's called, and that's how the palette was created. Well, people didn't take that too well. We've seen so many variations of the palette. I will link a video in the cards where I kind of talk about this issue, as long, also with another brand that is kind of, getting into that. But we'll talk about that in a little bit. But it wasn't really well received. Most of the ones before that were just they were just repetitious. It was just the same thing over and over and over again. Some of them were holiday sets. Some of them were just random releases. That's Benefit's not the greatest at planning their releases. Most brands are not very good with that. Glam Light, I think, just came out with a new cupcake palette, and it's very Valentine's Day themed. And here we are end of May. We're getting into summer. We don't really need Valentine's Day themed palettes. So we've seen that brands aren't always the best at keeping up with releasing things at a specific time to have them cater to that, season that we're in, the area of life that we're in, that type of thing. And then they came out with this new palette, which I'm going to be putting pictures up here in this corner so you guys can kind of see what I'm talking about, because I don't quite have pictures in front of me, and I just kind of want you to know in case you aren't familiar. They came out with a new palette that had all 4 Hoola shades in it, which I kind of feel is a good move for them if they're going to go about creating so many bronzers and hyping up the bronzer. Put it all in a 4-pan. I would suggest doing this over the rest of the palettes they came out with, where they had a highlighter and a blush mixed in with the bronzers. I kind of feel this is your stopping point, if that makes sense. I kind of feel okay, you've done all of that stuff, it didn't work, now you come out with the 4-pan that gives people a variety. You kind of get a contour palette or a bronzing palette depending on how it works for you, and we can move on. So now is the question, where do we move on for Benefit? What do we do moving on? And I kind of think Benefit needs to really rethink their whole the theme that they're doing with their palettes. Everything's cheerleader based and very vintagey, almost leaning towards the balm, which I feel it works for the balm because they're not pushing it to death they Benefit's done with the Hoola bronzers. So I kind of feel they could go along with that cheerleader theme, just not do so many cheek leader palettes and bronzers that are just all the same bronzer. Switch it up. Do a powder. Do a setting powder, whether it's pressed or loose. Do something that's, you know, a little bit different. You can keep the theme the same. You can, don't tack on the Hoola name, but, you know, try something different. Come up with something different that's not the same thing, so that way we can have time to either enjoy the Hoola bronzer or forget the Hoola bronzer. Because I know a lot of us want to forget it. The next one I want to talk about is Nars and their blush shade in Orgasm. Now, it's a little bit risque of a name, so I know a lot of people kind of have a little bit of an issue with this product and the name of the product, but I also know that Nars has different names that are also a little bit like hesitant, that like you don't want to say around your children, you know, like it's made for adults, which I never felt that Nars was ever really made for children. So that's kind of a good thing that they don't have, like, it's not like Too Faced, you know what I mean? Which we'll get to them. But Nars came out with Orgasm many years ago, and it seemed like a good blush. I feel like a lot of people liked it. You know, people were talking about it all over the internet. And now we have that dupe, which is the Milani blush in Luminoso. That's what it's called. So Milani came out with their dupe in Luminoso. So now we have a drugstore brand, you know, a drugstore item and the higher end item. But I still feel like people were very loyal to the higher end. They still kind of wanted that high end experience. But we've seen, just like with Benefit, Nars has come out with various palettes that features Nars, that features Orgasm, the blush, and they've, you know, done the mini, they've done the mega. I feel like they've done the larger size. Chad, what are you doing? They came out with a mini version so you could get it for cheaper. That was more like for travel or on the go, or if you didn't want to pay the full price, which always comes in handy. And then they came out with the larger size, which was like the mega Orgasm or something, like the long-lasting orgasm. I don't know what to get at. Like, I don't know what to call it. And I think it was released the first time as a holiday collection item kind of a thing. Like, it was a limited edition only at the holidays kind of a thing. But now it's come back. I noticed it very recently, and that's kind of what made me like get the inspiration to do this video, was to talk about the fact that they just keep releasing this. Now, I don't feel like Orgasm's quite as bad as Hoola, but I still feel like it's getting to the point that, like, we're done. They've come out with collections, they've come out with lip glosses, lip oils, lip tints, whatever you want to call it, they've done it. And I just kind of feel like that's what Nars is clinging on to try and keep the brand going. And I really feel like they just need to, like, let it go and move on. The next one is Tarte Shape Tape. Tarte Shape Tape was so popular when it came out. I remember when I first watched YouTube videos back in like 2016 or 17, everybody was using Tarte Shape Tape, and I felt like left out because I couldn't afford it, because it was $27 for a little concealer like this size. It was a slightly thicker, I would say, but still about that size. And considering I mainly bought makeup from Walmart and occasionally Ulta, because at the time we didn't have an Ulta, I kind of felt like it was a little bit too much for me, so I just kind of like watched from the outside in. Well, then whenever I thought about buying it is whenever like the swing kind of died down and everybody was just kind of like done with it, because nowadays people are going for more lighter coverage. They don't want something so heavy. And Shape Tape, you know, we now have the ultra creamy version, which I kind of feel like is almost excessive. Like, Shape Tape was almost too much, and now we're getting this ultra creamy, and I feel like it's just even more intense. And I'm not sure it's what people are asking for, but I'm not totally like, I don't know a whole lot when it comes to like, you know, feedback and things like that, and what people have said criticism wise about the original Shape Tape, about if this is like an improvement for the brand. Maybe they're listening, maybe they're not. They came out with the foundations, they had the hydrating and the mattifying, and they're both just like, nobody thought that they were super great. Nobody really like had awesome things to say about it, but they weren't totally like terrible. And I feel like that's something that really held Tarte afloat for a while. They had the Amazonian clay blushes. They have tried coming out with various different products. They've tried doing different things, but it never really seemed to work quite as well as Shape Tape. And I kind of feel like it's starting to lose its magic now. People are starting to realize they might not want this type of a product. They want something different, and they're moving on, and it's leaving Tarte behind. Another brand that's having that issue is Urban Decay. Now, Urban Decay has had some issues for a long time now. I feel like people have started noticing it probably from the cherry palette, the Naked Cherry palette. I feel like people were starting to notice that Urban Decay was just kind of lacking. They were clinging on to the Naked palettes for dear life and hoping that everything else would catch up and people would catch on to like Urban Decay's great. And that wasn't the case. They were catching on that Urban Decay was using the Naked palettes to keep their brand going, and people weren't quite thrilled with that, you know? They came out with Naked 1, 2, and 3. Then I believe after that was Cherry. And then they came out with Honey. And now they have the Ultraviolet. And now they have the newest Naked palette, which was like steampunk or something like that. Something along those lines. The picture will be posted up there. But they really tried to keep those palettes relevant and really tried to keep their brand relevant, focusing on the fact that they had the Naked palettes. They also had the Naked Reloaded, which I can't believe I forgot because I bought that and it's not even that great. I feel like Urban Decay was one of those brands that really changed the game when they first came out. They really like pushed the envelope. They were really edgy when it wasn't known to be edgy. Now that's what people look for in a brand. We don't want a brand that's very tame. Like, we find that that's more childish than what we're looking for. And I kind of feel like the Naked palettes did really well and people moved on because other brands started creating palettes, because there weren't just Naked palettes that you could buy for your eyes. There were other brands coming out with palettes, and it kind of left Urban Decay struggling to keep up. And I feel like that's where they've been this whole time. They came out with a new foundation, concealer, and I believe setting powder within the last year or so, and they were relatively good. It was basically just a revamp of the original foundation that they had, which I believe was also under the Naked line. So I kind of feel like they were trying, but it still wasn't the quite, wasn't the best way to go. And I feel like it's one of those brands, Urban Decay is one of those brands that they're really trying, but it's just not enough. And we want more. Another brand is Anastasia Beverly Hills. Now, I was a little hesitant to feature this brand in here because I feel like they're still kind of doing okay. They came out with some new brow products that people seem to like. They came out with the new highlighter that's called the Iced Out highlighter. This one right here that I currently own. Looks like this. It's really nice. I really like it. But they came out with the new highlighter and everybody seemed to, have good feedback. Anastasia Beverly Hills came out with eyeshadow palettes, and they were kind of just once in a year, once every couple years. Everybody really waited to see what was going to come up. And at first we had the Mario palette, and then I believe Kathleen Lights had her own collection, which nobody really talks about, but I kind of have heard and have seen that this was a thing, which is kind of cool, but I wish I would have known about it, way back when, so I could have bought it, but now it's too late. And then they came out with Modern Renaissance, and then they had the Subculture issue, which was, they got a lot of hate for that, but I feel like at the same time, there were a lot of people who did like the palette. They were willing to work with it and make it work and really put in the effort to actually get it to do what it was supposed to do, what everybody wanted it to do. And then they came out with the Sultry palette and the Soft Glam palette, and then things started to go a little haywire. They came out with Riviera, and then they had the Anne Reezy collection, then they had the Jackie Aina palette, and then the Carly Bible palette, and it was just chaotic. Everything was coming out all at once. Within a month, I believe Jackie Aina and Carly Bible were back to back. Anne Reezy was a month before. It never really, nobody had a chance to let their collections shine, and I kind of feel like that was what ABH wanted, because Norvina then came out with 3 palettes with her name on it that were huge palettes. All at the same time, all costing ridiculous amounts of money that nobody can afford for even 1 palette, let alone 3. And they're expecting everyone to buy them and collect them, and that wasn't the case. And people were really starting to get a little bit frustrated because they kind of felt like it was a big slap in the face because they were such devoted fans for ABH to come out with a bunch of palettes that they couldn't buy all at once. They couldn't really enjoy. It just kind of felt like they didn't care about them. They cared about themselves. And I started to notice a trend when the first Norvina palette came up that Norvina really took the front center stage. She wanted this brand to be kind of like Huda in my mind. I'm not saying this is the case, but I kind of think she wanted her face to be the face of the brand. She wanted everyone to remember Anastasia Beverly Hills because of her, not because of the name of the brand, not because she did anything great, just because she was this person, this face that you saw whenever you thought of, the brand, whenever you bought the products. Her face and her name were everywhere. And I really feel like that kind of took a hit for Anastasia Beverly Hills. I feel like having all these palettes come up really caused people to take a step back and really reevaluate the brand as a whole and just kind of see maybe they're doing too much and I'm getting overwhelmed and I should take a break. And I really feel like Anastasia Beverly Hills took a hit from that. I don't feel like the brand is completely doing terrible compared to the rest of these or some of these on here. I don't feel like all of them are doing quite as bad, but I do feel like Anastasia Beverly Hills definitely is seeing that this wasn't a good idea and maybe should have spaced the palettes out a little bit longer. Okay, moving on. Next brand I want to talk about is Too Faced. Now, Too Faced has a bunch of different trends that they've been trying to go along with that I feel like we could talk about. We could talk about the unicorn thing and about how everything seems very childish. Meanwhile, we have a powder coming out that has words on it that are a little bit misleading, that could, it's not appropriate for children, that I honestly felt a little embarrassed about looking at myself the first time. I'll post that picture up here so you can see that. But I think the biggest thing for them is the Better Than Sex mascara. Now, they haven't come out with a Better Than Sex, foundation or concealer or powder or, lipstick or anything like that. But I feel like they push this mascara more than anything they own. And not saying that the other brands within, the other lines within Too Faced aren't bad. I know a lot of people like the Born This Way foundation and I believe concealer that goes along with it. They always really say good things about those. But I feel like the Better Than Sex mascara is always talked about. They're always releasing a new packaging. They have the original, then they have the waterproof, and every year at Christmas or at holiday seasons, they have, different themed tubes, which I feel like is good marketing to an extent. But in my mind, it's just pushing it too hard. And it's just okay, when are you going to come out with something different? When are you going to do something that feels a little bit more original, that, is not your main focus? You know what I mean? I kind of want the brand to be known for more than just the Better Than Sex mascara. And in my mind, I feel like the only thing they are known for is the mascara. And I really feel like they need to, move away from that. It's had its time. It's been around for a couple years. Now it's time to move on. See what else you can do. See what other products you can focus on. Try and move your energy into something else. Probably away from unicorns and try and keep your brand, find a focus for your brand. But, if it works for you, I guess go for it. And then the kids will buy it. I won't be, but somebody will buy it. The next brand is Physicians Formula, which I posted the card earlier with the Benefit and Hoola bronzer, where I had compared the Physicians Formula Butter Collection to the Benefit Hoola bronzer situation and just kind of talked about how things were so similar and how they were releasing so many palettes with the same bronzer and it felt like overkill. And I started to notice that Physicians Formula is now the Butter Collection brand. They, between the butter stuff and the murmur butter, however you pronounce that, I honestly say it wrong every time. I don't know. But they came out with the primer that you press and it hides your pores, the pore filling primer. That one was a butter themed one. They have butter themed lipsticks or lip glosses or something like that. They have a butter themed mascara, which is fairly good. I'm not going to say it's terrible, but it's fairly good. They have butter bronzer, blushes, highlighter. I feel like everything with this brand is butter themed and I'm kind of done with it. I have been over the scent of the butter stuff since I tried the bronzer. I am not a fan of coconut, so anything tropical really does not tickle my fancy. It's not something that really excites me in any way. So I've been ready for this to be done and over with for a long time. So I'm really hoping Physicians Formula can find something new, pick up something different, and like go with that, you know? They had the Rose All Day collection or Rose something, and it was all rose themed, and I feel like that was a good difference. But then again, rose is still kind of a sensitive smell for people. I'm not a big fan of the way it smells, so I've never really tried any of those products. But I still feel like trying something other than the butter stuff might get people to try the brand who haven't already or who were turned away from the butter collection. Like, I no longer want to buy stuff from the butter collection because I feel like it's just been done to death and I'm tired of it and I don't like the scent anymore, and I'm just kind of like, I'm ready to go to something new. The next brand is Charlotte Tilbury, and this is their Pillow Talk formula color line, however you want to call it. They had the quads, the palette, which I heard the palette did really well. I think it looked really nice. It was one of those that if I had the money and I really wanted it, I would have gotten it. Then they came out with the lip liner and the lipstick and I think a lip gloss, and it's just, Charlotte Tilbury is becoming known for Pillow Talk more so than the Hollywood Flawless Filter foundation-y thing. It's not quite a foundation. I believe they now have a foundation, but at the, like, what I'm talking about is not the foundation. It's like the little highlighter thing you mix before your foundation or whatever. But I really feel like Charlotte Tilbury has pushed Pillow Talk the same way that Nars has pushed Orgasm. It's one of those shades that we keep seeing, and while it's nice and everybody likes it and it did really well when it initially came out, it's time for something to change. It's time for something new to come up. It's time for you to move on and find that new thing that you can then push for a while before you move to the next thing after that. Like, I feel like we've already been through it and it's just run its course. And the last one I want to talk about is Mel Cosmetics. Now, I've never bought anything from Mel Cosmetics because I've heard various things. I've heard inconsistencies with formula. I've heard problems with packaging, with the way things were packaged, and I just have never really felt like that was a brand that really catered to me. In case you don't know who Mel is, they're the brand that comes out with everything 420 related. Everything is green. Everything has a 5-leafed plant on it. If you are getting where I'm going, or catching on to where I'm getting at, I don't want to say it verbally in case I ever decide to get, or if YouTube ever decides I would like to be monetized or something. I don't want to demonetize myself by like bringing this up, but they have come out with various palettes. They came out with the mascara that was themed like that. I believe they had the mascara primer and then the mascara. I really feel like they're pushing it to the point that we're starting to get tired of it. I feel like even the people who this is catering toward are getting tired of it. Like, we've seen it a couple times. 2 palettes is okay. A mascara is okay. Maybe a green highlighter or something that would like shift green in some way. Something that like is a little bit different than like the eye products or like a lip product maybe. And then move on. I feel like we've now reached the point that like, okay, can we stop? Can we move on? Can we move on to something better? Can you showcase more products that, you know, are still interesting, but that don't have this like name attached to them? I feel like Mel is a brand that has been doing really well and people have seemed to really like. You know, I've seen various, you know, I've heard people say good and bad things about them. So I feel like consumers have kind of just like a medium love-hate relationship. Like, they feel, you know, okay, not great, but not terrible about the brand. So I feel like Mel can really like launch themselves into being better if they would just get away from this, like, what, you know, this like line, this plant that they've been milking off of for the last however many years. I just feel like it's become excessive and we're kind of burnt out. That's funny. Look at that joke. I'm going to end it on that joke. I hope you guys like this video. It was definitely something different that I haven't really done before, and I just kind of wanted to express my opinion and share with you my thoughts. If you have any thoughts that I didn't touch on or anything you'd like to bounce off of for my ideas, definitely put them in the comment section down below. I'd like to keep a little chat going to see what your ideas are, what can be done, or if you disagree with me on any of these brands or anything I've said. But please keep your comments kind of nice, because I will delete and or block people that are just being nasty, because like, we're not here for that on this channel. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, like, share, and subscribe, and ring that notification bell down below so you get notified when I upload my videos. And I'll see you next time. Bye!